Hi, my name is Meg Edwards, and I'm a GTD coach, and we're doing a series on GTD for beginners. And in this particular part of the series, this is part 3 of the weekly review. Even though it's for beginners, I think that people that have been doing GTD for quite some time can also benefit from some of the things that I'm going to be talking about. In the last 2 videos, just to quickly recap, we went over the calendar, we went over the waiting for list, we went over then in the next video agendas, and we went over errands and checklists. And so today I wanted to talk about the first step of Get Current, which is to clean up the actions list, to get the actions list current. Now, we've already handled some of those, which are, for example, waiting for, which is another step, but some people add the waiting for into this step, and your agendas and your errands. Those are things that kind of involve other people or doing things like errands. But then what about those things that you need to do when you're by yourself? So when you're by yourself, these are the next actions that you want to do. And some of those next actions are going to be one-offs, meaning they're not part of a project. And then some of those actions are going to be moving a project forward. And depending on your tool that you use, sometimes you can link your actions to projects and sometimes you can't. So I'm not going to get into, that part of linking actions and projects, but I'm going to be just talking about when you're by yourself, these are the next actions that you want to see. These are the options that you want to see when you're by yourself and you're going to make phone calls or send emails or to write something or to draft something, to brainstorm something, to text somebody. And you can see that I'm starting with what? A verb. Call, email, draft, write. And one of the things that I see so many times on people's next actions list is there's no verb. The classic example is, I need to follow up with somebody. Well, how are you going to follow up? Well, I need to reach out to somebody. Well, how are you going to reach out to them? Well, I need to contact them. Well, how are you going to contact them? It's like the classic, coaching example. Are you going to email? Are you going to call? Are you going to text? This is about being really kind to your future self so that when you're looking at your next actions list, you've already clarified it. You don't need to rethink it. And if you need to rethink it, they probably didn't land on the next action, or you didn't put enough information so that you don't have to rethink it. Now it's just about executing. It's just about engaging in your work and doing. So one of the things you want to do when you are getting current with your next actions list is there a verb? The next thing you want to look at is, are you still committed to do that next action as soon as you can? Because sometimes that next action isn't relevant anymore. Maybe you did it and it's time to check it off. The other thing that you want to take a look at is there's just too much there? And if that's the case, in the weekly review, you don't want to leave this step feeling overwhelmed. When you look at a next actions list, you don't want to be overwhelmed, because who's going to want to look at a list when you're overwhelmed? So maybe if you haven't created it already, you might want to think about creating a next action on hold list, which is different from a someday maybe. A next action on hold is, I'm going to do it, but just not now, because the someday maybe list is for things that also can be, I don't want to do it now. So I'm going to put it on my someday maybe list. But some people don't like to mix things that they're going to do with someday maybe I may or may not do this. So if that is the case for you, create a next actions on hold list and get all of those things that are just sitting there that you haven't gotten to, don't have the time or resources or bandwidth to do. Put them all on the next action on hold. And then in your next weekly review, or as often as you need to, you can go to that on hold list and mine for those things that you want to bring forward and put on an active next actions list. So how many things should be on a next actions list? It depends. What I would, again, recommend is to not have a next actions list that you're feeling overwhelmed. Or you don't want to be, scrolling up and down a list because you're going to forget what's at the top of the list. And so sometimes I say to people, try to keep it to a screen, full. Then how many next actions lists should you have? Again, it really depends on how you think. Some people like to have next actions by context. These are calls. These are things I do in the office. These are things that I do at home. These are things that I do at my computer. But a lot of people don't think that way. And a lot of people now are in one location. And so the context list, even though that is the first limiting criteria, think differently. Some people like to separate their next actions personal from professional, or some people like to have some of their next actions by topics. These are all the things that I need to do when I'm at QuickBooks, or these are all the things that I need to do for my, kid. These are all the things I need to do for this area of focus and responsibilities, and you want to group it all together. That's okay. If there's volume for a topic, you could have a list for that. You don't want to have too many because then you may be getting overwhelmed by having too many lists. So this is something that trips people up in the weekly review because they look at their next actions list and they just feel really overwhelmed. So that's why today in part 3, I just wanted to talk about the first part of Get Current, which is to clean up your next actions list. So give it a go. May take you some time, may take you an hour to clean up your next actions list. But then when you come into the next weekly review, it won't take as long. Or maybe just clean up one list and chip away at it. And eventually, when you are doing your weekly review and it's time to get current with your next actions list, it will be easier. So give yourself some grace period to get up and running with your weekly review. For more GTD resources, please visit gettingthingsdone.com and David Allen's YouTube channel. For more information on GTD coaching, please email us at info@gtdfocus.com or visit our website at gtdfocus.com.